Welcome back to this week's episode of Purrfect Takes. I'm your host, Stephen Patton, joined as always by my co-host and dear friend, Jacob Acquire. And today we are going to be breaking down not only last week's game against Arizona, we'll be previewing the Atlanta Falcons game this coming Sunday. Obviously, we didn't have an episode this past Tuesday or Thursday, and we'll be transitioning to a newer format. I think we want to focus strictly more on Panthers-focused content, being that our name is Purrfect Takes and we are Panthers fans. So let's dive right into it. It was not a hot start out in Arizona. Bryce Young had a fumble 6, followed right after in the following drive an interception. We fell to an early 10-0 hole. We're able to climb our way back. And unfortunately, we weren't able to pull this off despite recovering an onside kick. Where do you want to start with this game? Because there were I think some hidden highs that a lot of people aren't acknowledging, but there were a lot of blatant lows.
I think we start right at the beginning, right? What was it, the third play? Because it was looking like a
It was
three and
third
out,
down.
and
Yeah.
then a free rusher comes through, gets the sack on Bryce, and Bryce doesn't hold on to the ball. You can blame the O line all you want. What it comes down to is Bryce has to hold on to that football, and he has a habit of when we'll call it like the giant rushers, like 6'6" and above guys, get both arms around him, like they can kind of collapse his arms and he drops the ball. He has to, I don't know, hit like grip strength training or something and just get better at that. And that put us in the early hole. The next drive, I thought we moved the ball pretty well up until the interception. I think that was when Robert Hunt got hurt because there was the free rusher there that hit the ball while Bryce was throwing it, ends up as an interception. And the Cardinals get out to a 10-0 lead. But like you said, we got a field goal in the first half, but a lot of other miscues that Bryce Young's first quarter, horrible. But as the game progressed, I think that there were some bad sequencing, bad clock management, especially on that last drive, bad play calling. Uh, Despite all that, we were still very close to getting the win. We just couldn't pull it off there at the end.
No, and it's these self-inflicted wounds. Part of what made the Bryce Young resurrection arc last year so special is that he limited those negative plays. He was able to cut down on those and not have these costly turnovers that pretty much ended the game before it even began. I mean, when you look at the EPA, the biggest point swing came on that fumble 6, and it was a 7-point swing. I mean, at that point, you're expected to punt the ball. They're going to start on the 20. They have to go 80 yards to almost score in those circumstances in most cases. And in that situation, they got their first defensive touchdown in several years. So props to them for being able to generate pressure early and often. After the Panthers were able to get into a groove in the second half, we scored 3 straight touchdowns on 3 straight drives. I think the issue defensively, because they did a great job on defense limiting this Cardinals offense, was what happened at the end of the first half and the start of the second half. Obviously, the Panthers aren't able to run any clock down. The Cardinals get the ball back with some time. They have a couple timeouts. They're able to drive down and score a touchdown. And this is where I think the Lathan Ransom discussion needs to come in, because we saw Nick Scott get absolutely molested in coverage. I mean, you see Trey McBride get behind the secondary. Nick Scott is the guy that's supposed to be responsible for him, and he's a tick too late coming over to get Trey McBride. So it's a massive gain that starts their drive. Another big point swing. When you look at expected points added, this was the 5th best for the Cardinals, 5th worst for the Panthers. And so that set up the Michael Wilson touchdown, which was the 2nd best play. And you know who was in coverage, Jacob?
It was Nick Scott.
And Nick Scott, the reason why he was a second late was because he was watching Trey McBride there. So he got burnt earlier on that drive by Trey McBride, and because of that, hesitated watching Trey McBride, and Michael Wilson burned him. So we can put a lot of blame on Bryce Young and his shortcomings, but we had issues with this safety room, and they did nothing at the end of free agency to address it, and it's coming full circle. So I don't know why we have him in there, and we don't have the new guys in there like Dave Canales was kind of alluding to last week.
One of my colleagues at the 2-point conversion, Dylan, you know Dylan, he has a saying about teams: you can't be old and bad. Like you have to be one or the other. And our defense, at least at the start of the year, was both old and bad. Nick Scott is a key example of that. When Lathan Ransom was in, the safeties looked fine because Trevon Merrick could slide down into the box where he's at his best. But Nick Scott played, I think, 98% of the plays. That's one step in the right direction from week one, where he played 100%, I suppose. But then you look at the two young edge rushers as well. Barely played at all in the Jaguars game. They barely play in this game, but there's an uptick in their snaps on the field. And what do you know? We get our first sack of the season when Princely Umamielen is able to rush on a third down. He should be in every single obvious pass situation, in my opinion. Like it's pretty clear he has the best get off and like bend among all of our rushers. Same thing with Nick Scott or Nick Scorton, excuse me. I thought he played well in run support, and that's an area where DJ Wanham can struggle. So I think if they can kind of tool the people that they have to fit more how do I say it, advantageous situations, like Nick Scorton and Pat Jones be your early down rush guys, and then Wanham and Princely be your late down pass guys. I think that would benefit a lot because we also saw on one play where I think it was Pat Jones got the pressure on Kyler and made him throw up the like the moon ball
Mm-hmm.
interception, which DJ Wanham made a pretty crazy play to catch. I didn't think he was going
Yeah,
to be
no.
there in time, but he got it. I think that's no, JC Horn had a turnover as well, but uh, we need to be better on defense. And they were better in the run game, I'll say. They limited the Cardinals, who have James Conner, have Kyler Murray, I think to a total of 85 rushing yards, if I'm not mistaken, which is really, really good. 82 rushing yards, my fault. But they need to be better overall. And then I do think the pressing issue is more on the offensive side of the ball with both Bryce Young and a lot of other players, like the interior O line, Xavier Anthony Leggett, and then I thought this was not one of Dave Canales' stronger performances as a play caller.
Before we wrap up with kind of the miscues, especially towards the end of the game on that final drive, the only other defensive player I think is worth mentioning is Christian Roseboom. Again,
Yeah.
another position that we were kind of concerned about. I think Trevin Wallace had a better game than he did in week one. Like, he was well out of position, and Liam Cohen made him pay for it based on their game plan and scheme. But he did a little bit better this week. It was Roseboom who just got caught out of position, and if that's Evero's scheme, that you're putting a little bit more on these linebackers' plates than really they should be doing given their talent level, then you got to figure out how to shift the balance. And again, going back to a thin safety room, it kind of makes it hard to cover the middle of the field. And I think that's where a lot of offenses are going to try to target this in the near future. And so I guess when you go up against a guy like Michael Penix and you see his passing chart, I think that gives me a little bit of hope this coming Sunday, and we'll get into that with that breakdown. But going back to the Panthers offense, we were feeding T Mac his big 40-yard reception earlier on in the game to kind of get things going. That was one of the biggest EPA point swings, leading to a 3.42 expected points added. And that's huge. He's been the boost that everybody thought he would be as a top 10 overall pick. But on that last final drive, the sequencing was awful. But T Mac's only target came on the very first play, and then after that, it was all downhill.
Yeah, that last drive in particular, I think kind of highlights my concerns with the play calling and sequencing in this game. To get an onside kick, first of all, is extremely rare, especially in the new kickoff format. They showed on the score bug, our last onside kick was from 2019, and if you remember, I believe that was a Washington game. I think they were the Washington football team, and it was Kyle Allen. We ended up losing because Ron Rivera didn't go for two the first time, like you're supposed to. Classic Ron Rivera, but still 6 years to that point that we hadn't recovered an onside kick. So we get it. And then after that T Mac target, every play was four verts for no reason. And what were we doing the previous three drives that allowed us to score? We were dinking and dunking. We were taking what the defense was giving us. And there were hardly any underneath routes on that drive. And I know that they only had one timeout that I think they spent on after a penalty. But you can still get up and spike the ball, right? Like, you have the opportunity to stop the clock. And I'm not sure that running like extremely deep routes every single play is the play there, especially when you had a little under 2 minutes. I don't know. And then, yeah, T Mac, once they figured out, hey, this guy's probably the best receiver. We should probably double and triple team him. I think it fell apart from there because Xavier Leggett was not reliable. And as much as Bryson Tremaine played well, I think in his first really big role, he doesn't generate a ton of separation. And then you have Renfro out there as well, who isn't a deep route player. So it was really over before it began with the way that that drive was being schemed up.
And it made no sense. You have a minute 55 and you're at midfield. You have a
Hmm.
timeout in your back pocket. Like, this is the perfect setup to go win the game and not feel like you have to press the ball. And like you said, the way they were moving it was kind of the dink and dunk. And you have a Hunter Renfro, a JT Sanders, a Chuba Hubbard coming out of the backfield. Utilize those guys because you know they're going to be honing in on T Mac. Like, if you're going to buy into the point that you just made, that, hey, their focus and intention is on our number one guy, then make them pay for that. And it's just like, I don't understand how you lose the forest for the trees in that moment. That you're trying to get that home run play, the kill shot, when it's like you already got the kill shot with recovering the onside kick. Just do what you got to do to go make a play. And I mean, I'm going to read off what happened on that drive. You had the incomplete 4-yard pass to T Mac. Then there was the incomplete 7-yard pass to Xavier Leggett. There was an offsides penalty that got accepted. And then there was an incomplete pass to Bryson. After that, we had the defensive holding that saved us on the 4th down. That would have been a fumble recovery for Arizona that would have ended the game. After that, we run the ball to Chuba Hubbard. Then there's a offensive holding penalty on us. A 15-yard roughing the passer got us back into it, and then 2 more incomplete passes, an offside, a penalty accepted, a 14-yard pass completed, and then on 4th down, there was an 8-yard sack by Calais Campbell to end the game. Like, we went nowhere for 2 minutes and we had the ball for like 10 straight plays. It was 11, but like, that's insane to me. That is absolute incompetence. And if this keeps happening, because the defensive side did their part, I have a lot more respect for Evero and how those guys bounce back. If this is the product we're going to see on the offensive side, then at this point we need to be questioning if Canales should be calling plays. Like, is he any better than Brad Idzik as that? And then would that free up Dave Canales to worry about game management and going, okay, we're in this situation. We shouldn't be calling streaks every single play. And that's where I think he's going to have to take a step back and reevaluate stuff. And if nothing changes, then I don't think we're going to see a different product on the field come Sunday.
The game management part, aside from play calling and sequencing, I think that was concerning as well. If you look at right before the half, the 2-minute drill that we had, you go back to last year, we were excellent in the 2-minute drill with both Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. That's like where a lot of our points came from, was in the 2-minute. And we start at our own like 10 or something. The Cardinals did a good job on the kickoff coverage, and we have the ball. We have timeouts. The first play, I think, was a rush, and then they don't really get up to the line quick. And so, all right, if you want to burn 30 seconds to make it to where the Cardinals can't go again, whatever. I think the second play was an incomplete pass. The third play was a JT Sanders drop, but on that play, or it might have been on the second down. On that, you see Xavier Leggett like walking back to the line of scrimmage instead of running up there. It was actually after a completed pass to JT Sanders, but he's walking back, which burns like 30 seconds. They don't use a timeout. Canales doesn't use a timeout from the sideline, which he's allowed to do. It's not just the quarterback that can use it. And eventually they end up 3-and-out because JT Sanders then drops an over the middle pass, which would have given them a first down. And then the Cardinals go down and score in 50 seconds, like we talked about earlier. I don't understand how in a 2-minute drill, like I get whatever, JT Sanders dropped the pass, whatever, but I don't understand how you allow the Cardinals to get the ball back with enough time to score and the clock stopped. And like the effort that the players are, one player in particular displayed on that drive is just astounding to me. Like, there needs to be urgency, and there was last year. Maybe with Cade Mays at center, there's going to be more urgency because that's when Bryce Young really came along. But I don't get it. Like, it seems sluggish in an area where I think to that point we were down. Let me see, 13-3, I believe.
Yep. And that
Yeah,
swung it wide open. They went down and scored, and then they got the ball at half, and then they scored again. And that's why I said that was the worst sequencing from Evero, was the end of the first half, start of the second half.
yeah, and to Evero's credit, they held from the rest of the game, right?
Yep.
Because we gave
Yeah,
up
did
a
did
fumble.
their job. It
Um,
was just
yeah,
awful that it had to happen that way.
yeah. So really they got 10 points off of turnovers, and then the defense gave up, we'll say, 17 points the rest of the game. That's very good for this defense. But yeah, that 2-minute drill was just astounding to me to see that. And then throughout the game, I thought it got better in the second half, but in the end there, I don't know. Like the high leverage situations, that's when it seems to get worse, especially with timeout usage. That's been a weird thing, even going back to last year. Timeout usage. I don't understand how you like take timeouts into the half and don't use them, or use them when you don't have to. Because the one we used at the end of the game, I believe the penalty had stopped the clock and they still used the timeout, which is just odd to me. But overall, I guess what my point is, like, all three phases have to get better, or I guess four if you want to include coaching, have to be better. Even though the defense was good to their standard, um, they could have been better in the high, like the middle four, as you call it, the end of the first half, the start of the second half. The offense, Bryce needs to hold on to the ball more. The O line needs to be better, and then from the coaching perspective, we just have to be more sensible in high leverage situations because, like you said, even if we don't score on that drive. Let's say we get to midfield, but we leave 20 seconds on the clock. The Cardinals aren't scoring, right? And so that's another 7 points off the board where I'm not saying we would get the onside kickback at the end or anything, but it would end up being, I think, 21 to 20 or 22 to 20, and we'd have a chance to kick a field goal. So, like, we just have to be more competent. Like, NFL teams don't have these issues. We need to move past this.
Yeah, and that's where something has to change within the building. That's where I think Dave Canales may be coming away from play calling and focusing more on those game management issues, the timeout usage, making sure that like, hey, these possessions count. Because to just go 3-and-out and hand the ball right back to the Cardinals in that situation at the end of the first half was completely inexcusable, let alone everything else that we've talked about with this game. Now, with the offensive line injuries, and the team that we're about to face on Sunday, they've been able to prey on two offensive groups that have been without their starting left tackle. Tristan Wirfs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week one, and then Darrisaw, I think it's Christian Darrisaw with the Minnesota Vikings, their left tackle was missing in the game against the Vikings on Sunday night. So we have our left tackle. Ike Ekwonu's back. It's the interior that we have some missing pieces. I don't know if the Falcons have necessarily generated a lot of pressure on the interior. And so, as long as we're able to play cohesively as a unit, I think we have a chance to protect Bryce Young relatively well, considering why we brought Cade Mays, Zavala, Brady Christensen back and brought this unit back from last year's because these guys were so good at stepping up when some of the starters were missing time. So, that's not the issue for me. The issue goes on the defensive side. This is a team that we thought would struggle to run the ball with their offensive line injuries, and that's been anything but the case, as Bijan Robinson looks very much the part of the offensive player of the year that you predicted him to be in the offseason. Is that going to change come Sunday? Because I love Derek Brown in the middle. Their outside zone running scheme is going to put a lot more emphasis on our edge players and our linebackers, and I don't know if they're ready for the task.
Yeah, Bijan's been incredible to start the year. Looking at his game last week, 22 carries for 143 yards. He actually had more yards on the ground than Penix had in the air in that game, which is it's always weird to see that kind of stat. But he's been incredible to start the year. People can give Michael Penix some credit. I don't think he's played super well to start the year. Bijan is like the guy on that offense, or yeah, on that offense. That's who you have to hone in on. And the fact that we were able to contain James Conner and Kyler a bit gives me more hope as compared to what we did with ETN and those guys in week one. But Bijan's going to be different. He's better than respect to James Conner. He's a better running back than James Conner. So that's going to be task number one. JC Horn's pretty good in run support. So if they bounce stuff outside, I have less concern there. But if Roseboom gets matched open in the open field, it might be over. So like they need to be on their P's and Q's in the run game. That's like the inflection point to me because if you look at what Michael Penix has done in the air, he has the lowest ADOT of any quarterback so far that's attempted 25 or more passes. It's like
Which is a complete switch.
astoundingly
That's a
low.
180 from what
Yeah.
he did last year.
Yeah, it's like if you look at what Tua Tagovailoa did last night, it's lower than that. Like that's how short he's throwing these passes. And granted, Bijan Robinson's really good at converting these passes, right? Kyle Pitts over the middle has looked resurged through 2 weeks so far, but that he does that every year. It might be a little bit of fool's gold, but we really need to limit Bijan to force Penix to have to throw downfield because that's where I think our two corners, Mike Jack and JC Horn, can really match up against guys like Drake London and Darnell Mooney. We already know how good JC Horn is, but to Mike Jack's credit, I think he had the fifth lowest passer rating allowed for corners that have played 50 or more coverage snaps. Like he's been very, very good to start this year.
The only blemish is the pass interference against the Cardinals on their drive that set up the field goal. So that's the only knock I have on him. He's been really good. He's had Marvin Harrison Jr.'s number the last two times they've played, and he's been really good. So if that continues and J.C. Horn stays healthy, I don't have an issue with how we're covering on the perimeter. Everything goes back to the middle of our defense. And that's where I'm curious. Michael Penix didn't really target the middle of the defense against the Vikings. Is he going to be able to change that up? Is he going to be able to find Kyle Pitts? Is he going to be able to find Drake London? Is he going to be able to push the ball past 20 yards? Because I dropped a graphic a couple of days ago. He has 0 catchable passes beyond 20 or more air yards. This is a guy that is struggling to press the ball downfield. And that's not something that we saw last year. That was like honestly his only strength, I thought, last year is because of how scattershot he was. And we see a little bit more of that inaccuracy, but I just don't think our defense is going to be able to take like an opportunity when he makes those mistakes. And so as much as I would love to see JC Horn make another acrobatic interception, I don't know if that's necessarily where we're going to win as much as just keeping everything in front of us and not letting them rip off a big run.
For me, the win condition in this game, if you will, is going to be on the offensive side of the ball for us. The like you alluded to earlier, the Falcons' defense has been number one, and it's called havoc rate. It's like all the negative plays: pressure, sacks, QB hits, interceptions, forced fumbles. Number one through 2 games, but like you said, they played against a Vikings O line that was reshaped and didn't have their left tackle, and JJ McCarthy's just been really, really bad to start the year. And they played against a Tampa O line without Tristan Wirfs. Obviously, we're not going to have Rob Hunt. That's like my big concern with this. Austin Corbett going down, probably not the worst thing, given that Cade Mays was the guy when Bryce turned it around last year. So our offensive line has to be like as cohesive as a unit. But on the offensive side of the ball, I think T Mac has a huge opportunity this week. AJ Terrell is already ruled out. They don't really have any other cover corners. Their safeties, the young safeties have been good, but I'm not sure that they can match up with a guy of T Mac's like size and fluidity. I think that's going to be the key. Like we pressed him or we forced the ball to him in the Cardinals game. It looked good. He didn't score, but like it moved the ball down the field. I think even more targets need to go to T Mac this week.
Yes, we didn't hit the 15 number that you kind of brought up last week. He was at 10 targets. We talked about earlier, like he should have been targeted more in that last drive. Like if you're just gonna run 4 verts, give him a chance. Like we've seen within just 2 weeks, like what T Mac is able to do or is tried and attempted to do on the perimeter. And so it's like I want to keep seeing more of that, of just those one-on-one shots, even if he has double coverage. Like this is a guy going back to like Steve Smith with the Carolina Panthers, where I
Think we might have lost Steve in there for a second, but I can kind of continue with what he's saying. I said we needed 15 or more targets for T Mac. Obviously, it goes to 10. He gets 100 yards on 10 targets, 6 receptions. With Terrell out, and with respect to the other guys on that roster, like D. Alford, I'm not sure that they can cover T Mac. Like Will Johnson, the rookie corner in Arizona, has been playing really well for a rookie, and I think he's better than any of the cover corners that Atlanta has. But now that Steven's back, he can continue his thought.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought there. I love my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi is the best, as you guys can all see and tell. But going along just the line of where I think the Panthers need to, I guess, like find a way to win at the bank, your first home game. It goes back to feeding T Mac. And if you're able to do that and the Falcons then have to clue in on him, then I think it opens things up for your tertiary guys. I I don't want to see Anthony Leggett featured in this offense anymore. And I'm not saying Jimmy Horn's better, but at this point, we know Hunter Renfrow is a little bit more reliable. JT Sanders, I personally prefer. Like, yes, does he have a couple drops? But he does also make some pretty impressive contested catches. That's a guy I want to see featured a little bit more in this offense. And then run the ball with Chuba Hubbard. Have some of those two back features, like Chuba Hubbard being that fullback on those like fourth and short, third and shorts. Like we were able to break off a couple bigger runs from that look, and so just being more creative with those players on the field and maximizing their opportunities rather than force feeding someone who it's not working out. And I don't know if that's a confidence issue. I just don't know if he's built for this. I know I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming out of college, but I'm done with seeing Anthony Leggett on the field.
And if he is on the field and you're using him, I think it also falls on Canales to use him in more advantageous situations. Like you can't forgive the drops and effort and stuff like that, but he has Leggett, who's not an agile person, taking like jet sweeps and stuff like that. Whereas Leggett's strength is straight line movement, and we saw one crosser with him this entire season, and that was the one where Bryce threw the pick, the first interception in Jacksonville. We haven't seen anything since then. Like get him like involve him in screens where he can catch the ball and run straight or run
He
crossers
had two
across the field.
screens against Arizona. They went nowhere because he
Yeah, but
doesn't
they
have
get blown up easily as well.
but he doesn't like him coming out of college. If you look at his athletic profile, as much as people want to be like, this is a Debo Samuel because he came out of South Carolina, he doesn't have the quick speed, like that ability to accelerate and stop. It's all long speed. So him like working out in the screen game doesn't make sense. It makes sense to use him as a blocker and get somebody like Jimmy Horn out there that has that extra gear and has the ability to be shifty. He doesn't have that lateral quickness.
I agree. It makes sense if you get it blocked up, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
For
that's
all the
fair. I'm just
credit
saying,
for
like,
T Mac, he's not the greatest blocker yet, but I mean, he's also 2 games into his career. That and like crosses over the middle, like that's what you can use him for. When he thrived last year, even when they thrust him into the X receiver role, it was all straight line or crosser stuff, and we haven't seen that this year. Maybe T Mac kind of throws a wrench in that because he's the better player, but like if you're gonna keep putting Leggett out there, give him a chance to do what he's good at, is what I'm saying. But I agree with you. I would love to see more of Bryson Tremaine. I thought he played excellent. He had this one catch where it could have been intercepted, but he like reached back behind him with one hand and caught it. Very good play. And I think he's doing a lot on special teams as well. So would love to see more of Tremaine. If Leggett doesn't play, I'd like to see Jimmy Horn because he's like really the only true speed guy we have. And I think when you draft somebody, you should probably play them, especially when your offense lacks that particular element. So we'll have to see. I think the point stands, though. Our passing game can have a good impact on this game without Terrell out there. I think T Mac should be the focal point. And from there, I think if you kind of reverse it, like you can build the run off of the pass game because you can take the rushers out of it and give Chuba a chance to go crazy.
it's the issue with this offense, and it's unfortunate, is that Bryce operates better in shotgun or empty type sets, and that's not beneficial for disguising the run of the pass. And so I think like finding ways to have Bryce comfortable under center on a couple of these play action looks. And like, yeah, if you're going to have Anthony Leggett out, have him on a crossing route to where it's an easy just pitch and catch. But I think we tried some of that in Jacksonville, and one, it got intercepted the one time. Anthony Leggett couldn't drag his foot the other time. It's just different route combos or scenarios where we're trying to incorporate these things hasn't panned out. So that's more just like we need to find something new, refreshing that keeps the defense on their toes. And that's as soon as you find a way to blend that run in the past, that's where I think we're going to see Chuba Hubbard take a step in being a little bit more efficient this year. I feel like things have been a little bit predictable right out of the gate, and that's got to change.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at how they limited McCarthy last week, and excuse me, McCarthy's not very good so far, but what they're able to do is speed him up, right? And I think one of the things Bryce is actually very good at is he kind of, or at least last in the second half of last year, he showed that he can't really be sped up. So if there are safety nets like JT Sanders or Renfro over the middle, I think that is a key against that rush. You also need to give Renfro his flowers for getting 2 touchdowns last week, 2 more than Adam Thielen has this year, by the way.
I mean, you can say all you want about that. My issue is Renfro wouldn't have been the starter, and I think you talk about a difference maker on that last drive against Arizona. Adam Thielen would have been that guy, and
For
Renfro
sure.
wasn't that guy. And so that's where it's like I understand it's like it's funny to poke at it, but again, this is something where Dan Morgan, it's like there were talks of like we were wanting a third round pick, and it's like we got, I think, close to like a late fourth, early fifth in terms of the compensation and how the pick swapping went. It's like, was that really worth it as you're trying to figure out if this works? And you knew Adam Thielen was a piece that worked on the offense. Like, imagine having T Mac and Adam Thielen, and then if you get Jalen Coker back healthy, and it's like you don't even have that option now. So yes, is it unfortunate that he's not as productive as he would have been here in Carolina? No. But I'm not going to sit here and say Hunter Renfrow is the answer. I think he got lucky in garbage time just getting some looks because of how things were schemed up for him. I want to see this team succeed. I want to see this offense succeed. But I think that means that we do something within the first half. And the past 2 games, we haven't been able to score more than 3 points. So that, I think, has to be the difference maker. So as we're kind of wrapping up, my perfect take is if the Panthers want to win on Sunday, they have to score a touchdown in the first half. And I think if they don't score a touchdown in the first half, they lose. So I'll be at the game. I want to see points. I'm going to say the Panthers score a touchdown in the first half. I'm not going to say they win. I'm just saying if they want to win this game, that has to be one of the steps in order for us to pull this off.
How sad of like a take there. Like we need to score in the first.
Just a touchdown.
I'm not blaming
yeah,
you, but that's the state of the Panthers right now. Even last year, it's weird. Even when Bryce was doing well, we scored like a lot in the third quarter. Like the stuff would take a while to start, and that goes back to coaching for me. But I 100% agree with you. I'd like to see like at least 10 points in the first half. I don't think that's too much to ask from an NFL franchise, but we'll have to see this week. To that point, in terms of touchdowns, my take is that T-Mac is going to get his first touchdown of his career this Sunday. We talked about A.J. Terrell being out. We talked about how he saw 10 targets last week, got 100 yards on 6 catches. They were trying to feature him in the red zone. Like there's this one, I don't even want to call it a fade. It was like a back shoulder lob moon ball to him. He and Bryce just barely, it wouldn't have been a touchdown, but they barely missed that one in the red zone. There was another one that they missed in the red zone. I think Dave Canales wants to get T-Mac involved in the red zone. So in a game where their best cover player is out, I think he will score his first touchdown of his career. Maybe it'll be that first half touchdown that we're both wanting.
I'm hoping for the same. I'm curious because of the number one corner being out, if it's going to be a red zone touchdown or if it'll be one of those like we're at like the 30-yard line and Bryce just heaves a go ball like one-on-one and he just mosses the guy. So that I could see both being the case. I just know with their revamped safety room that the defense does seem to be playing a little bit faster, more opportunistic. When you speed something up and you try to get like a slant in the red zone, that's where you get a safety coming across or a linebacker, and it muddies things up. Bryce is definitely able to react and process fast enough to get the ball there in time. It's just that concerns me a little bit with how the Falcons have constructed this defense.
For sure. I think that's like, we kind of didn't mention it, but both of the young safeties, Xavier Watson, Billy Bowman, each have an interception so far, and Jesse Bates is still there. So their safety room's pretty good. It's just the corner room, I think, is the advantage, like sideline stuff, where T-Mac can really, really cook. I think that's going to do it. Next week, we'll be back at some point to review this game and talk about the next Panthers game and maybe some themes through the first couple games of the season, things that we want to see changed or things that we really, really like. But until then, you can follow us on our socials. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Twitter. And for all the people that are going to be there at the game this week, like Steven, enjoy it and keep pounding.